In 2020, I wrote an article for my personal blog titled If Trump Wins, and it touched on the immigration policies that would be enacted by the Trump administration if they managed to win a second term. In particular, it touched on how these policies were designed by Trump's senior policy advisor, Stephen Miller, who is a known white supremacist. According to the former Department of Homeland Security Chief of Staff Miles Taylor, these policies were so heavy handed that they were considered unacceptable to even be proposed during Trump's first term because of just how extreme they were. They felt that introducing such extreme immigration policy in the first term would lose them voters for a second term. And honestly, it's no surprise that these policies would be that extreme given that Stephen Miller was involved in designing them, and he himself having already been involved in blocking immigration policy that would have granted a pathway to citizenship to Dreamers. This was the Gang of Eight bill. And if Trump had won a second term, these policies included things like ending birthright citizenship, limiting the amount of refugees allowed into the United States, or outright completely banning refugees from being accepted. Luckily, Trump didn't win. Biden did. Unfortunately, that has led a lot of you to fall into a false sense of security. And as such, you've let your guard down. You've let your guard down to the point that you think that Trump could not win again, just like you thought he wouldn't win the first time. And yet here he is running again for 2024, and this time they are open about their incredibly xenophobic, hateful, anti-immigrant immigration platform, promising a lot of the same extreme policies that they had planned before but hadn't really announced, and then expanding on them. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So aside from promising to enact a lot of those planned policies from the 2020 campaign, Trump's campaign has also promised to expand on that, promising that should he win a second term, to deport millions of people per year, promising to scour the country for undocumented immigrants. And in order to accomplish this goal, Trump has promised to build sprawling camps with which to hold migrants and mobilize not only immigration officers, but even the military in order to help with these mass deportations of undocumented immigrants. His plan, per Donald Trump, is to follow the Eisenhower model, a reference to the 1954 campaign known as Operation Wetback. Yes, that is what it was called. Trump's campaign has also stated that they are prepared to use a form of removal proceeding that would not require due process hearings in order to more quickly deport immigrants being held for deportation. This lack of due process, to me, doesn't say Operation Wetback. It says Mexican repatriation, which occurred from 1929 to 1936 and resulted in about 2 million Mexicans being deported, 60% of which were natural-born American citizens that were illegally deported simply for being Mexican. Many of them, this was possible because they were deported without due process. Also, I know this is probably obvious, but those of us who have DACA are in danger of losing it, as the Trump campaign has promised to attempt to end the program again. Also, the Trump campaign has promised to end the temporary protective status of certain immigrants, such as those who fled Afghanistan during the 2021 withdrawal of U.S. forces from the region that led to the ultimate takeover by Taliban forces. I want you to remember that a lot of these people who came from Afghanistan fled the country due to the risk to their lives, due to the fact that many of them offered help to U.S. forces, for instance, working as interpreters. A lot of these people are in danger of losing their temporary protective status, although the campaign states that these people would be allowed to stay after they are re-vetted. It's likely that many of them will lose their status and face deportation in the face of immigration policy designed by a man who pushes white genocide and great replacement rhetoric. A lot of these xenophobic anti-immigrant policies are being pushed off of the fear-mongering rhetoric that immigrants bring crime into this country. This is something I've touched on in other videos, showing that in fact, immigrants commit crimes at a lesser rate than US citizens, and undocumented immigrants actually commit crimes at a lesser rate than documented immigrants and citizens combined. They're also pushing the narrative that those people coming from places like Mexico and Central America are coming from places like prisons and insane asylums, that they're terrorists, using frankly Nazi-like language by saying that these people are poisoning the blood of the nation. And of course, none of this rhetoric is actually backed up by any fact. Their anti-immigrant rhetoric is backed only by their xenophobia, ethnocentrism, and racism. And so here is my warning again. Just like I gave it in 2020 in my article, If Trump Wins, I'm giving it again in this video. If Trump wins, it means mass deportation of migrants in sprawling detention centers. It means the mobilization of the police and military against immigrant communities in this country. It means people being held and deported without due process, something which in the past has led to the illegal deportation of people simply on the basis of their perceived race or cultural background. It means the potential deportation of thousands of people seeking protection from places the US has destabilized, and the potential death of those people due to their involvement with the United States, literally sending our allies to die. It means allowing for 4 years people like Stephen Miller, a known white supremacist who pushes white genocide, immigrant invasion rhetoric, and great replacement conspiracies, getting to dictate immigration policies which will have lasting detrimental effects on our communities. It means the potential of another Operation Wetback or Mexican repatriation. And given the rhetoric that they push, maybe even another matanza. But only if Trump wins.